Good evening and welcome to another episode of The Fire Caves, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Perry.
And I'm your host, David. Tonight we're talking about the penultimate episode, Season 7, Episode 24, The Dogs of War. Before we continue, you can find us on Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube as The Fire Caves, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine podcast.
That is correct. And as I say every single week, you should find us and follow us because we're great, we're awesome, we're a good time, and this is almost the end. So thank you all for joining us. As another famous captain once said, you fixed the barn door after the horses have come home. So here we are. We are talking about Dogs of War. It is the second to last episode of season 7 of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. What we move on to afterwards will be anyone's guess. But of course, before we get into tonight's episode, I always like to do a little check in with ourselves because it's been about a week or so since we last spoke or saw each other or both. So, David, how's your week been?
Week's been fine. Week's been good. Yeah, my roommate's been out of town. He's out of town for the next couple weeks, almost a full month, as he visits the country of Georgia. He might want to move there as a missionary, so he's taking a trip out there just to visit and see what it's like. He went to visit Russia as a kid, like a exchange program for like college at one point. So he kind of knows Eastern Europe a little bit. Um, so it's been kind of interesting here at the house, a little deader than normal, which is interesting because it's also meant that I've had more kind of just space to study for this life insurance gig I might take after the current job ends. In fact, this upcoming week, if I understand correctly, is going to be the last week that my store is open. Which is also great because it's Labor Day weekend tomorrow. This weekend, so tomorrow is Labor Day, and oh my gosh, I can't wait for these paychecks to come through because they are going to be bangers. Yeah, so things are winding down nicely for me there. That's great. I haven't got a chance to read because I've been busy studying instead, or just busy at work. It feels like clockwork sometimes. Like literally, the door closes and a phone rings, or the next person walks in, which is great in terms of business, but also means like I have no time for anything else. So it's been busy for me the last couple weeks, especially this past week. But yeah, how about you? What's up with you?
So, pretty much the same. I have really been focused on work and a little bit of rehab. I don't know if I told you guys last week or not, but once again, I hurt myself. So I was kind of laid up for a few days, actually much longer than I had anticipated because I had just finished one particular phase of training and I was going to be moving into this 90-day program that I had been really excited about starting. And of course, I got hurt like the day before it started. So it's thrown me off really about a week from what I wanted to do. Week and a half from what I want to do, but I'm finally back and feeling better. I'm going to go to the gym. As a matter of fact, tomorrow, yes, it is Labor Day. I figure it'd be the perfect day to get out and actually do some stuff. I promise I won't try to push myself too hard, but you know, I'm still going to go at it. Meanwhile, while I've been laid up convalescing, I have been making my way through this thing, which is very fitting considering how close we are to the end of our run here of Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Mm-hmm.
I it's it's one of those things where like I had to remember how comic books flowed. It's been a long time since I actually read any comic books whatsoever. So this has been kind of like, I guess, getting me back into how that works. It's not the same as reading, obviously, a typical story or anything like that. So a little bit different, but it's still very enjoyable. It's still nice to see some familiar faces, new characters, and just kind of continue the storyline after the end here. So we can talk about this a little bit more once we get through the end, because obviously this contains spoilers and don't want to do that for anybody. So, if anything, remind me while we're talking about other stuff, and we'll get to it.
Gotcha.
Um, Also, I have been keeping up with obviously any new Trek developments. And for those of you who are gamers, you might be interested to know that a new Star Trek Voyager game is set to be released really soon. They have not put out the official date yet. However, if you are a Steam member, you can go on Steam, do a search for the Star Trek game. It's called Star Trek Voyager Across the Unknown. From what I can tell and from the synopsis given of the game, this game is basically your chance to control the fate of Voyager. It's kind of like set up as like a what if story to
Mm.
where you get to go through and I guess do your own choices for getting the ship from the Delta Quadrant to home. Will you make the same choices that Captain Janeway and the crew made? Will you make different ones? Will you adhere to the Prime Directive? Will you not? All these kinds of things are given to you when you play this game. It's been called the one way to rework certain issues, certain problems that Janeway had. Um, I can't really speak on it because David has not seen much of Voyager. Uh, There are some particular um, Prime Directive and Sanctity of Life issues that Janeway dealt with during her tenure as captain of Voyager, which some people are eagerly looking forward to reworking in their own right. So who knows how it's going to be? Um,
Right.
I can tell you from what I've checked out of the game so far. Again, if you go on Steam, they've got several images. There's some videos, things like that. The graphics look great. I think that it's probably one of the better Star Trek games that I've seen when it comes to that. Now, that's saying something considering, they have the Star Trek Online game right now that you can still play, of course, but as a dedicated just to one franchise game, this is probably one of the better ones that I've seen in quite a while. So I'm looking forward to that coming out finally. Probably here soon, because again, we September's here basically, and as we know, Star Trek Day is looming. So I'm sure a lot of these things are going to come out right around then. So just be prepared for that. But I would strongly suggest going to Steam, bookmarking it if you're interested at all, and when it does drop, you can get the update and start playing right away. No word yet on cost, so just add it to your wish list, and as soon as it becomes available, they'll let you know. Other than that, things have been going pretty smoothly here. We are excited about the Labor Day weekend, but we are not here to talk about all of that. We are here to talk about Star Trek Deep Space Nine. So, without further ado, the Dogs of War. So, as continuing, I've been giving the summations for these episodes because it is one long thing here, and I'm trying to get you the highlights. And again, go watch the episodes. They're available on Paramount Plus right now. You can watch them, then you can come and join us. You can rewatch our episode, see if you agree, and leave a comment on any video that you want on YouTube. And we encourage you to do so. I might hop in there and argue with you later on. Who knows? But anyway, this episode starts with everybody on, well, almost everybody on Deep Space Nine. They're eagerly awaiting their girl to show up, right? She's late, and everybody's very eager for her to make her grand appearance. Finally, she does, and it's none other than the San Paulo, a Sao Paulo, the Defiant class ship. Admiral Ross has brought her from the shipyards where she has recently been built and I guess retrofitted with a defense against the Breen weapon.
Mhm.
He transfers over command of the Sao Paulo to Captain Cisco, and there's also been special dispensation made to Captain Cisco that will allow him to rename, excuse me, sorry, that will allow him to rename the Sao Paulo the Defiant, which of
Mhm.
course he's very um, willing to do.
Yeah.
Everybody's getting comfy with the new ship. We see that Esri and Bashir seem to be a little awkward around each other and trying to figure out what's going on there. O'Brien and Worf are watching them and musing about why they're having their awkwardness. Um, I think at one point O'Brien says, "What's the problem?" And Worf's like, "He's an overgrown child and she's confused," or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, so obviously these two are still dancing around the fact that they like each other and just haven't talked about it. So there's that. We also see that Odo has pretty much made a full recovery. As we know from the last episode, he had got the cure from Dr. Bashir, but he still needed time to rest, and now he's back to his old self. Bashir makes it a point to tell him that he was not infected by the founders, but in fact, it was the other way around. He informs Odo that Starfleet, well, Section 31, had concocted the disease in the first place and had infected him, hoping he would give it to the founders, which he did. He confronts Cisco about it, and Cisco's like, yeah, it sucks, but they're our enemies, so
Yeah, they started the war.
yeah, they started this, and we had considered at one point giving them the cure, but then they really went rough on us. So we said, nah, I can do that. And so it was like, okay, so I see how it is. When the chips are down, you're willing to sanction almost anything to win. He's kind of insinuating you're no better than they are because they didn't do the thing, which I thought was interesting. Sorry, I'm itchy. um, which I thought was interesting because had they released the cure, they could have averted the war. They could have, made friends with the founders, like, hey, we've become aware through Odo that you all are suffering from this disease. We found a cure for it. If you'll stand down, we'll give you the cure. Now, I mean, finding out later on that they're the ones who created the disease in the first place, that is a mucky issue that maybe they would have had to reconcile later on.
Right,
But, I'm just saying there's another thing they could have explored here when doing this.
right.
Um, in another story that we have going on here, we can finally get to catch up with Quark and Rom and Nog and that whole group. Um, Quark gets a private message from the Grand Nagus, who is coming to the station to announce a successor. He tells Quark that it's him, and so Quark is all excited. He's making arrangements. He's gonna, basically he just do all the things he's wanted to do. Liquidator Brunt shows up, starts being the sycophant that he is. He's kissing the hand. He's, giving him a pedicure, trying to really suck up to him in order to curry favor with the new supposed Grand Nagus.
Mhm.
He informs Quark of all the changes that the Grand Nagus has currently made to Ferenginar, taxes, various social programs, things like that, that are clearly under the influence of Quark's mother, Ishka.
Moogie.
Moogie, yes. So Quark is very upset by all this, and he says, first thing when he becomes Nagus, he's taking all of that stuff out. He's reestablishing the unadulterated greed of the Ferengi people, and of course, the Grand Nagus shows up, and it's like, you're not going to be the new Nagus. Rom is. Rom, the idiot,
Yeah.
is going to be the new Grand
Apparently,
Nagus.
this was Moogie's great plan.
This was Moogie's great plan because she had, again, put all these little social programs and stuff in the works, and she knew that if Quark was named Grand Nagus, he would not uphold these things. But Rom, being the dedicated moron that he is, would, and so that's why they picked him, and it works. And Quark makes his peace with it, and you know it's just accepted that he's gonna stay at the bar.
Yeah.
In fact, he had at one point sold the bar to Rom, and Rom gives it back to him just to show the difference in perspective of the two brothers. One sold the bar, the other one gave it back. So interesting dynamic there, to say the least. But that's their little side storyline. The other side storyline, again, we're going to just cover it really quick because I don't like it. Bashir and Ezri finally do have their weird talk, and it's like, oh, it's great that we recognize that we like each other, but we are too mature, want to be friends. We don't want to lose our friendship, so we're gonna stay friends, and that's that. Pat ourselves on the back. Isn't that cool that we're just gonna be friends? Weird conversation that's just stupid dance around to drag out the fact that it's later on we see them kissing in the turbo lift. clearly deciding that just being friends and the importance of their friendship was dumb, and now they're together. Okay, I'm not gonna talk about it anymore. Next, we move on finally to Kira and Damar and Garrick, who were on their captured Jem'Hadar ship. They had decided to go to Cardassia itself because Damar had arranged to meet with some high-ranking Cardassian generals who, once swayed, would bring a significant number of troops over to their side. They beamed down to the meeting spot only to find out that it was a trap and everybody's been murdered. So now they try to beam back up to their captured Jem'Hadar ship, but it's under attack and it gets destroyed. Garrick has a contact on Cardassia, who her name is Mila. She was the housekeeper for Anabran Tain, who we all know is Garrick's father, or was Garrick's father, because Anabran's dead now. And she lets them stay hiding out in the basement of their old house.
Mhm.
Now that everybody is dead, Damar and Garrick seem to be particularly dejected, don't know where to go next because they've lost all their troop support, their generals. The Dominion puts out a message saying how they've wiped out all of the rebel bases, and they show the image of Damar's captured ship being destroyed and say, and look, even fearless leader Damar is dead. So now, completely demoralized, they're trying to figure out what their next moves are. And Mila comes back and she's like, the people in the streets don't think you're dead. They think that there's all kinds of rumors going on as to what's going on. And Kira figures out that, they basically kind of turned him into a legend, a legendary figure for the Cardassians. And he has to um, kind of rise to that occasion. And so they use that and they plan an attack against a Jem'Hadar base and blow it up. And then Damar makes his impassioned speech to the um, Cardassian people, telling them to rise up, lead the revolution. Let's kick these, Dominion off of our planet and take it back. Freedoms, freedom, freedom, so forth and so on. And that's now the new way this is going to go. The legend of Damar leading the Cardassian revolution against the Dominion.
Right.
The Dominion, for all their information, has decided that, or no, they find out that the Federation has found a countermeasure to their energy draining weapon. So now they decided to pull back their lines, secure a border at, at Cardassia, and then hold up there for a while. This way, they can bolster their troops, rebuild a lot of their ships, and then come out fighting from uh, Cardassian space. Because in their opinion, the Federation is the main driving force of the coalition between Starfleet, the Romulans, and the Klingon people. Starfleet will want to fall back because Starfleet is not an aggressive organization. So if the Dominion pulls back, the Federation will pull back, and then because the Federation pulls back, the Romulans and the Klingons will follow suit. So
Right.
that's kind of their plan. Well, once Cisco and company finds out that this is what they're doing, that they're solidifying their borders, Cisco and everybody are like, well, Martok is like, we got to keep fighting. We got to, we can't let them hide.
Yeah.
And the Romulan commander is like, no, let's leave them alone. They're pulling back. They know they can't beat us, so let's let them stay where they are. And Cisco and Admiral Ross are like, no, now
We're
is the
gonna
time. 'Cause
rebuild
if we
troops.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're gonna rebuild. They're gonna come back out really hard, and if we don't take them out now, it'll be impossible later. So they are now pressing for the offensive to have a master strike against the Dominion. And that's pretty much where this episode ends. Those are again just the kind of basic highlights. We're going to get into more of the things here, of course.
Cisco goes back to his quarters and meets
Oh
with.
yes, that's right. So after this meeting, Cisco goes back to his quarters to find Cassidy awake, and he starts talking to her, and she tells him she's pregnant. And now he's very excited. He's very happy, of course, but she is very nervous because she knows about the warning from the prophets, and she is worried that that means that there could be something wrong with the baby. And we also get a little peek in behind the scenes of how the Federation deals with
Pregnancy
fertility and pregnancy. Apparently, there's an injection
that
that
you both have to take
that both individuals have to take once a month that keep you from producing children.
because Cisco
Never
forgot, and that was
Cisco
enough.
forgot his. Cisco forgot his. So, and so now here's the thing about that. And we could talk about this later. Now, normally, or not normally, in our society currently, we have um, contraceptive medicine that women can take. Right? They have a monthly pill they can take that stops them from getting pregnant. We're not
Right.
going to go into all the science behind it, but that's essentially it. Okay, that's essentially it. Um, but here in this situation, we find out that it's an injection that Cisco can take, and he doesn't get his from Julian. He was busy, as he says. He didn't get his injection. My only question on this is, since it's clear that there is some kind of contraceptive that they can both take, but he didn't take his, and because he didn't take his, she got pregnant. Is the reason that he's able to get his monthly because he's a Federation officer? Because she's a civilian. She's not a member. I mean, she's a Federation
Can be a
citizen,
member now. Well,
but
she's
she's a
also
and
his
she's
wife. Yeah,
yeah, but she's
but
not
they've
a
been together
Starfleet
for long
officer.
enough. Yeah.
Yeah, but she's not a Starfleet officer. So my question was like, is there something they both can take, but they kind of technically have to go to like different doctors? I'm like we've seen Julian treat civilians, but typically that's because they were involved in an accident of some kind. He
Right.
doesn't have a regular rotation of civilian patients that he sees.
Maybe he oversees civilian anyone related to Federation business. Like she's a civilian, but because she was part of the Federation in terms of her shipping and such.
No, her
No.
shipping contract is through Bajor.
Well,
Her
true,
shipping.
but I'm just saying, like, if she was, had a contract with Bajor, but the ship itself is still, well, let me put it this way: the station is Federation run. Her ship went out of the Deep Space Nine, so yes, her contracts are with Bajor, but any medical issues that she needs done are done because Bashir runs the medical facilities on the station, so that's just her go-to contact anyway. Um, Again, the thing that's more interesting to me is the idea that maybe I heard wrong. It sounded like she was insinuating that both of them needed to take the medicine, but just one of them forgetting Cisco was enough for her to get pregnant. Or maybe it was only that men have to take it, and she
Or
was just saying that he forgot to take it, and she wasn't insinuating that it was her fault. It was just his fault. So, like in modern medicine, women take the medical whatever they need to stop pregnancy, but in the future, it's men who take it, which actually in some ways makes more sense. I would think because for men, it sounds like it's a really simple process
yeah,
for us.
I
You
mean
know,
that's always been, I guess, part of the again from a medical standpoint. From what I do know, I'm not a medical expert. I'm not a doctor or anything like that. But that, from what I understood of it, that was always one of the arguments, was that it would be easier to basically temporarily sterilize the male
yeah,
than it is to do
anything
the
to a woman. Yeah,
physical, chemical, physiological changes necessary to stop a woman from
becoming
producing
pregnant.
the egg that gets pregnant and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Way more
but
complicated for the ladies than the gents. Yeah.
yeah, but for some reason that was where the science went versus over here
Right,
on our side.
right.
So I don't know. I just found that was the only part of it that popped up in my head that I was wondering about was, is it something that everybody in the Federation gets, or does he get this because he is a Starfleet officer and they're posted on ships all the time, the personnel changes, long 5-year missions and so forth, and you don't want to suddenly have your majority of your officers unable to perform their duties because they're pregnant, or family obligations suddenly stopping people from transferring to ships when necessary because they were on a 5-year mission and they started a family on whatever ship that was, and now they don't want to leave that ship because that's where their family is. Like what are those? Is this a way around that? Was kind of my point to all that. My questions to that, but I mean,
Yeah.
because it makes sense to me if you can, um, if your officers voluntarily, of course, agree to taking this monthly injection so that they can still, you know, have sex without the baby component. Um,
Repercussions,
yeah,
consequences.
uh, makes sense, but hey, whatever. Um, but yeah, so that's what we find out there, and she's worried, but he's like, "Don't worry
You
about
know,
it. Everything's gonna be
I just want
great."
to say, I want to pause real quick. Do you think Cisco forgot, or do you think Cisco forgot?
Nah, Cisco's too honorable. He legit forgot.
Yeah.
I mean, the
Okay.
man is he's like the linchpin in the war against
True.
the
Yeah.
Dominion. I'm
Yeah.
gonna give him a pass and say he just forgot. Now, if he was just, the sector pencil pusher, that guy on the other hand, he didn't forget. He scheduled it. He scheduled it.
That's
So
so funny. If it truly is like a male, like the men are the ones who are supposed to be responsible for making sure it doesn't happen. But that's the whole point of, I guess, pregnancy anyway, is that the women are the ones who experience all the consequences of said action. So yeah, maybe it is a two-parter thing, but maybe the men are like the more active element is still the men's responsibility, and the women's have like a backup sort of option, and maybe she wasn't. I don't know. It's we could really go into all kinds.
yeah, and they didn't, and they just didn't give us a whole lot of information. We just know there's an injection that Cisco was supposed to have got that he didn't get, and now she's pregnant. So the only part of it that I was really interested in was, is this something that he gets because he's a Starfleet officer, or is this something that anybody can voluntarily sign up for? You get it
Right,
every month until you decide you don't want it, and then
right,
you just don't get it.
right.
So. But that's it. That's what I found curious or
Yeah,
interesting anyway.
yeah, yeah.
Well, and while we're on the subject, if we had that ability, if we had that medicine now, would you take it? Would you voluntarily get an injection that would keep you from having children until you were ready to have children?
I mean, I'm not socially active and haven't been in a long time, so I
That's
don't feel
not the
like I would
question.
need it.
That wasn't the question. The question was, would you? I don't need
In
to
a
know
general
that.
sense, in a
It
general
just
sense.
generally, if that, like, let's say that they came,
Sure.
yeah, they came to you at.
I mean, I don't like needles, so I would be just on that level kind of objected to it. So, but heck, if me and my lady partner and I mean, wife, we need to talk about it. Yeah, it's on the table. Yeah, I sure, why not? How about you?
Yeah, I think I would. I feel like it would be more socially responsible thing to do because, um, regardless of activity or whatever else, you wouldn't want to necessarily be in a situation where you would bring a life into the world that you are incapable of protecting, nurturing,
Carry forward.
so forth.
Yeah.
So this is a great way to keep that from happening, and doesn't seem to be any side effects. I mean, the man didn't take his shot last month, and he's raring to go a month later. So hey,
Yeah.
he did the deed a month later. So yeah, I think that's a smart way to handle that situation right there. Get the injection until you're ready, or at least capable of being ready. Like
Sure.
Cisco and Cassidy may not be ready right now, but there's no doubt in my mind that these are two very capable individuals who, in short order, would be ready by the time the baby arrived.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah. Well, so let's turn our attention to the other story that I don't like, but we have to talk about it because it's in the episode. Bashir and Esri. Um, I try, guys. I try very hard
Hmm.
not to crap all over Esri, but they just make it so easy. And in this one, once again, I'm going to criticize her on the fact that she is supposed to be the counselor, and yet she is completely inept at handling her feelings, at addressing Bashir's feelings, at addressing their mutual feelings. Like the whole thing, just I don't know if they were writing this with the intention of they're trying to build up some kind of angst around these two, but it's one of those things where it's far, far too late. You're doing this in literally the 11th hour of the show.
It's
If
11:59 at night. For
right,
crying out loud! Yeah,
if this had been something building since season 5,
yeah,
maybe.
yeah. Like I'm only just now finally kind of getting comfortable with the Odo Kira relationship, and here we are, jump starting the Ezri Bashir
We're
one.
not even jump starting it. We are smack. We're driving the truck through this thing.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
still also don't like the fact that it's all in front of Worf. Like I don't care
yeah,
what anybody wants to say about the trills and rejoining and whatever it is. He's right there.
yeah.
He's right there.
Yep. Yeah, when he says he's a child and she's confused, it's supposed to be that he and Esri had their little talk and figured out their relationship. But that's still a man who's bitter on some level about the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah.
He and his wife were just getting started. They were just getting started talking about growing a family themselves. And then she's brutally murdered. And now he has to watch this other man who clearly had feelings for his wife, by the way. Clearly had feelings for his wife, by the way. He has to watch him pursue around the new embodiment of his wife, the person who carries all of his wife's memories. Like I couldn't. There's just no way.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah.
And he's just told over and over again, basically, get over it. They don't do anything to try to acknowledge what this is doing to him or whatever. And it's supposed to, well, he's a big Klingon. He can get over it.
Yeah.
Why? Why?
Yeah. That is the one complaint I have about the characterization they do with Worf is they always treat him as the guy who he has to be corrected. He's wrong. Worf is too aggressive. He's too Klingon. Like I really would love a storyline, and maybe this is what happens on Picard, where like he's allowed to let loose. He's allowed to be like that episode of the Mirror Universe where he was the Emperor and he was being as Klingon as ever Klingon ever Klingons. Like that was awesome to watch. Like I want to see more of like Worf being allowed to let loose. Instead, he has to be this caged, I think,
Beast.
yeah, he's a
Yeah.
caged beast.
He's like a lion. You're right. He's a lion in a cage.
He's
And
caged. He's tamed. His balls have been cut off. Like he's been neutered, and whatever it is, the right word for that is, um, like when I'll put it this way: when Ezri and Bashir are doing this, like, oh yeah, I've totally been like wanting to talk to you about how like I like you, but I'm gonna be a real big person, and I don't want to lose your friendship, and we're really big people for not wanting to just go bang each other right this minute. And then later on, they're like, we're so brave, and then they get in the elevator or the whatever the
that's it.
thing's called
Elevator, turbo lift,
turbo
same deal.
lift, and they're kissing. Like they don't even care about the rest of the world. They're just making
They're
out,
they're taking the turbo lift to ops,
and
a very
they're
public place,
not
and they
public and
couldn't.
professional
Yes,
and professional
and
place.
now they're kissing in the turbo lift that Worf of all people has to send back down.
Yes, he's the
I
one who
just
pushes the button. There's no like guilt. There's no shame. There's no oops. There's no oh look at us we're cute. No, it's like Worf has to be the one who like. And of course, the way it kind of is filmed, it's like almost like Worf can't handle it. Like he's the one who
right, like he's dying inside, but he still has to shoulder this and handle it because the two children in the turbo lift can't
like
be
if
respectful.
O'Brien did it, he could have done it with a chuckle and a laugh. He could have, and Worf could have rolled his eyes, but maybe smiled and like, all right, they finally did it. Like it could have been like Worf's final moment of like, okay, giving it up. O'Brien being like, I knew it was gonna happen, but yeah, the whole thing was like waiting for a train crash to happen, but it's gonna happen, and it's not interesting because it's gonna happen. Like you can see it all unfold before it ever happens.
Honestly, she should have left. Esri should have left.
Day
They could have
one.
they could have reintroduced the character, sure, to give us some sense of closure for the Dax symbiont. Just be like, Jadzia will live on in Ezri, but she's gonna go off and do her own thing. Let her say her goodbyes and then go. That
Okay.
is not your place. That is not your home. That is Jadzia's place. That is Jadzia's home. Her husband is still freaking working there. The
Yeah.
least you could do is give him this space and go somewhere else. But no, you had to stay around because you were confused, and all you knew was Ben was your friend. Get out of here. Just get out.
Yeah.
Get out. Get out.
Go back to your murder brother and your crazy mother and
Uh, uh,
yeah. Anyway, so
I'm
yeah,
trying. Yeah,
that storyline was dumb. I'm glad it's
yeah.
finally been resolved. I imagine we'll have some final bow at the end, some final sign off with the two of
Well,
them
yeah. This
before
was
the
this was
finale.
'90s. This was '90s Berman Trek. So at some point, someone's got to get at least a little naked. Otherwise, it otherwise it didn't happen.
Okay,
That's the
well,
rule.
I mean, I don't want to see Esri walking naked, half naked, or anything out of Bashir's room or vice versa. But
Well,
now the way
again,
you said
it's
it,
it's
that's gonna
90s,
happen.
it's 90s Berman Trek. So
Ugh,
there'll be a little naked, but it'll be a tasteful naked.
gotcha.
Tasteful naked. Okay.
Well, great. I have
There,
lots to
there's
look
your
forward to in the
there's your
finale.
spoiler.
Yeah.
There's your spoiler.
Okay. Well, let's move on to like Odo or something, because at least his perspective, his
Yes.
storyline is interesting.
We need
It's
to
a brief
talk
one,
about
but
Odo and the genocide because genocide is definitely a topic that's been in current events, news lately, and yeah, the way that it's set up here. So just to real quick recap, we know that the Section 31 gave Odo the disease in the hopes that he would pass it on to the founders, which he did. What they did not anticipate was that Odo would develop symptoms himself, which of course he did, which led to Bashir and trying to track down a cure, which he did in Section 31 and gave the cure to Odo.
I want to just quickly disagree. I mean, maybe they didn't anticipate Odo would get symptoms, but I think the reason he didn't show symptoms all this time was because he didn't change. He wasn't shapeshifting because he was with Kira for all that time, and that seems to be what triggers it, as we saw at the beginning of this 9 episode arc.
Oh, it's yeah, I mean, it certainly accelerates it. You're right,
Yeah,
because he was changing a lot,
yeah,
and then, but
yeah.
since
It
he was
sounds
always before that maintaining his one shape and
right,
only, I guess, going back to gelatinous form when he needed to regenerate, it was slower.
right,
I could see that. I could
right.
see that.
Yeah. Um, the reason I want to talk about this though is I thought more about that question you asked me, which is what Odo also asked, is like, okay, so the Federation's okay with genocide. This is going to be a question, like the way I'm going to say this might offend some people maybe, but I don't think that biological warfare in this sense necessarily qualifies as genocide. Now, maybe it's intended so that at the very least, if it's intended as genocide, then you're guilty of genocide. But my point is, biological weapons are very ineffective in the real world as far as I can tell. What do I mean by that?
As far as we can tell with our current science.
Yes, with our current science. Let me put it this way. Like a disease, virus, or bacteria, you can't control its vector, you can't control how it spreads. So you're not in full control. Therefore, to say you want to wipe out a full population, maybe if you want to do major damage to a population and count that as genocide, that counts. But I'm talking about straight up, we're murdering all changelings.
So I think that the reason that this is still count as genocide is it's not so much that it's biological warfare as it is a targeted weapon for a specific set of people.
Right, right.
So
But
that's how we're getting it. So I mean, it's genocide via a bioweapon.
sure, sure. My point though is that if the weapon, like the weapon hasn't killed anybody yet, as far as we can tell, so it's a slow acting kill, or at the very least, the changelings once they recognize they have it, if they aren't shape shifting as often, they can slow the slow. It's dead. How quickly it kills them. So if that's the case, if they could potentially find a cure, then I would argue that it's not so much, at least in this case, not so much an intentional genocide per se, as much as I mean, they're willing to kill, so it is in that sense. Don't get me wrong. I'm saying that
But it sounds
It's
like you're saying that because it didn't actually kill anyone yet, it's not genocide.
no, 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 no. What I'm saying is that if I could see the argument that the whole point of this disease was to put pressure on the changelings to capitulate, in that we'll give you, if they had ever pitched it this way, they didn't. So I'm not saying that they are getting away with not being genocide because they didn't do it my way. If they had pitched it as, we just infected you with a deadly disease, but we can cure you, we need you to capitulate, you still could be argued to be, threatening genocide, and maybe you're still guilty of it. I guess what I'm getting at is that when I think of
I don't think we
genocide,
have a name for that kind of crime.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I guess when I'm thinking of genocide is I think of a more direct and intentional, you know, action to death. Like a disease is
Yeah,
just not.
that's what I said earlier. You're saying it's not quite genocide because no one, at least that we know of, has died yet. I mean, the founders haven't reported that there's been a mass loss of
Well,
changelings,
let me put it
but
to you
we
this
know that
way.
they're all infected.
Let me put it to you this way: if you point a gun at someone, pull the trigger, and shoot them full of bullets, shoot them through the holes, you you've tried to kill them. You've tried to kill them. They could survive. If you're so good at shooting your gun that you could, for example, shoot them full of holes but miss all of their like all of the vital organs, so you're putting them in extreme pain, and the idea is that my next bullet's going to go to your head, then are you guilty of killing the person just yet? Not necessarily, but your precision was such that the only reason they're not dead was your precision. So the bioweapon doesn't have that benefit of, it.
No, because once again, it still sounds like you're saying that because even though they infected them with this disease, they're infected, they're obviously sick and dying, but no one has died yet. So is it truly genocide? 2 points on that. One, we don't know that none of the other changelings have died. It has not been reported. We do know, however, that the symptoms are seemingly irreversible. Their overall ability to control their morphogenic matrix, as it's called, which is seems to be essential to them being able to live, is deteriorating.
Here's
And
here's what I'm trying to say. Sorry to interrupt you. I'll put it this way: if I have, if I'm saying to you, do a thing and I won't kill you, but otherwise I'll commit genocide against you. You are willing to commit genocide. You're in the position of committing genocide. However, if there's like an out, if they were presenting the cure to the changelings and saying your choice of behavior will cause us to act a certain way, then
but that's something
it's
that
a
we
weird
we
sort
we
of
don't
like out
see.
of
But
it.
that's something that we don't see, and from what we can infer from Section 31, that was never their intent.
Sure.
It
Yes.
seems
I am
that
I am
the
purely arguing hypotheticals, 100%.
well,
I get that.
yeah, so even then, I would say intent matters,
Sure.
and in this context, the intent of Section 31 was to eradicate the founders. It wasn't a let's cripple them and bring them to heel. It was the best thing that we can do in this situation is to eradicate them. So
Right.
that, to me, that right there solidifies this as
Well, again, this
genocide.
is where I go back to the idea that, at least in the real world, as far as I understand it, even the most deadly diseases we know of, say like the Ebola virus, don't have a 100% kill rate. So,
Well,
assuming that this disease would also not have a 100% kill rate, that's just a presumption, then they aren't committing genocide in the sense of purely wiping out these changelings. Now,
no, I'm still going
if
to
you're
disagree there
defining
because if you wipe out 80% of them
right,
and 20% live, that's still genocide because that's
okay,
80% gone.
right, right. So if you're using that definition, you're totally right. When I think of the purpose of genocide, though, as in trying to eliminate every member of a group, you that's the harsher definition I want to apply here, only
Okay.
because I'm
So
trying to
then,
think about like
for a real world context, the Holocaust, we
right,
know that millions of Jews were killed.
right,
we accused Hitler and the Nazis in the Third Reich of committing genocide against
Right.
them.
Right.
He didn't wipe out all the Jews.
Right. Right. Right.
Didn't, but I mean, a significant number were still killed.
Right. Right.
That's why we still call it a genocide.
100%. But I would think you would argue. I think it'd be arguable and not. I think you would say that Hitler intended to kill every single
Well,
Jew
that's
if
why I
he
said
had.
earlier that intent matters
You know,
because yes,
I 100% agree.
he had
I
intended to, but he just didn't get the chance,
Right.
you
Well,
know.
again, I'm just going back to if the Federation Section 31 released this virus in a quote unquote defensive capacity, knowing that it wouldn't kill everyone, it wouldn't. They didn't have direct control over who it would kill. Then you could. I'm trying to just play devil's advocate just for
But
the fun of it.
it's not going to work because they specifically infected Odo with a virus to be transmitted to his people for
Yeah,
the intent of eradicating them. Whether or not it got to
that
all of them,
certainly seems
they
to be
didn't
the
care.
intent.
The intent was to eradicate this group of people. Whether we get 100% of them, whether we get 80% of them, we're going to get enough of them that we can cripple them irreparably.
But are we crippling them only in as so far as we need them to stop attacking us, or because we truly intend to decimate and eradicate and eliminate
So
completely
that's
their
where you're
people?
conflating two things because the Starfleet, from a Starfleet perspective, they would want to like go be on the defensive and win through ultimately negotiating a truce or a ceasefire, right? And so there would be no reason to eradicate them at that point. We would definitely reduce your military numbers because you don't need those military numbers anymore because we're at a truce. But for Section 31, their mission statement is completely different. And they are on the whole threat assessment of any potential, well, threat, any enemy.
Right.
And their mission statement is basically to eliminate any true threats to the Federation and Starfleet. So by whatever means necessary. So going from that perspective, um, again, still gonna be genocide, no matter what they do. Their goal, because the most effective way to make sure that that threat is well and truly gone is to eliminate as many of them as possible.
Right. Again, I'm arguing devil's advocate position. Certainly, Section 31 did not at any point indicate that they had any sort of mitigating reasoning behind their choices. They were
Now,
they were willing to do the dirty work in the dark that Odo accuses Cisco with kind of tacitly being okay with.
to your other point
Yeah,
though about how with bioweapons, the major issue with them is not being able to control their vectors and who they may infect, and you never know how that bioweapon may mutate and actually come back to bite you, one day. That would explain why they kept and well, they developed and kept a cure because recognizing that it is a bioweapon that they can't ultimately control in the event that it infected somebody that they didn't intend for it to infect, they would have a cure that they could then utilize to save those individuals. So, still, to me, that even kind of seals the deal on this being genocide because they had a cure and intentionally withheld it to see how many people they could kill.
sure.
So,
Yeah, I guess the fun part is if things had. I mean, I don't think this is what section. I don't think Section 31 would have ever offered the cure. To be
no,
very clear,
I don't think they would have either. I don't think we would have ever heard
even
about
if
it
the war
unless,
ended, they would have allowed
yeah.
it to go as far as it would go. I
Yeah,
just
I
I'm
was like, we would have heard about a cure. Like this would have been a great episode in like a season of a new show, like several years later, where a new race was infected by some kind of bizarre disease, and they were to track it down and be like, "Oh, this seems kind of similar to a disease this guy was infected with 30 years ago," and
right.
it's that,
So
and yeah,
keep following up on this. Let me ask you a follow up question. Then let's see what you think. I would say in my mind, I when I think of committing a genocide, there's an ideological component to it. So let me put it to you this way. Let's say Section 31 has developed a biological weapon for every species in the galaxy: Klingons, Vulcans, Romulans, the Breen, and it could effectively do what this disease does here. But they've never released it.
Okay.
Are they guilty of genocide in the sense that they have been willing to create the technology? They just have not yet released it?
So I
Because I
would
would
say
argue that the ideology behind it would argue that yes, they were willing. The willingness is the guilt aspect. That makes sense. But sorry, I asked you
okay.
a question, and interrupted you before you answered. Sorry.
So I would say that as much as I said earlier, intent matters. I would also say that any execution along that plan also matters. So coming up with a plague to decimate these people, but then not releasing it and kind of keeping it in your back pocket for a rainy day, as it were. I feel like if someone found out that you had created this thing, you should be punished just as if you had released it, because the intent was to release it at some point, that you would be given provocation to release the thing. Now, if you never release it, it never gets released, and then, let's say 50 years goes by and someone finds it and reads up on it and figures out what it is, and they destroy it, right? And then someone comes along and finds out about it and sees that it was destroyed, and they're like, well, your people still created it, so you should be um, punished for it. That I don't agree with, because you've had time to kind of come full circle. You did the thing, you wised up, you matured, and realized this was a terrible thing. You took care of it yourself, got rid of it. You made sure that it could never be reproduced. You did all the steps that were necessary. It's just that someone found a footnote somewhere that mentioned that it had been created, and there was just enough evidence left to show that it had been created, but also destroyed. Right? I don't feel like we should be bringing people up on charges for that, because they took care of it. It's definitely the execution of the thing. You know. Now, if they created it and tested it out, and there was a small village somewhere that died mysteriously, and now we can trace it back to the virus that was created, even if 5 people died in your test, I think you should be brought up on charges for that, because they would not have died had it not been for you creating and releasing what your weapon. So
Right.
that still would count as genocide. Because I know some people get into, well, it's a numbers thing before you can call it genocide. No, because the thing was designed to kill that group of people, any number in that group of people to me would immediately count as genocide, because you targeted them specifically.
Right. So, yeah, I like what you just said, and to kind of bring that home for the way I've been thinking, just thinking it out loud as we were talking, I feel like there are two definitions of guilt for genocide. There's the ideological willingness to do so, and then there's the actual accomplishment of it. And it's possible to be, I think, innocent in one way, but guilty in another. Like you just said, if you developed the technology and you only killed 5 people, well, you're ideologically guilty, if not, effectively guilty. But you could be effectively guilty, if not ideologically so. You know, I don't care how many people die if I, need to mine this particular, resource out of this particular location. And therefore, if I have to kill all the natives in the process, I'm not killing them because I ideologically hate the natives per se, but I don't care about them enough that I'm going to kill them. That's one definition that you could go. But then there is certainly a combination. I ideologically hate these people, and I systematically have proven myself guilty by having accomplished certain, acts of horror and a tragedy, the Nazis and the genocide and the Holocaust. So, yeah, just thinking out loud, I think Section 31 might be arguably innocent of the ideological perspective, in the sense that they're purely they would argue on a purely logical, this is how we defend ourselves level. But the fact that they would even argue that proves that they are ideologically captured. So it's a catch 22 actually in some ways. Anyway, I'm just speculating. I'm just hypotheticals. and we're already almost an hour in, so like I can
Yeah, no, no,
stop.
no. I mean, no, it's fine. It's fine. That's kind of the not even kind of, but that's definitely our point
Right.
here of our show. What we like to do like this in a little while. I don't think it's really been since the cloning do we really kind of get into it to this degree. So
Yeah. Oh man,
um
that was like season
yeah,
one.
that
Oh
was
my gosh.
I was gonna say it was a while ago. We haven't really had that many philosophical issues, I guess.
Oh
And
wow.
with what's going on right now in the world with Israel and Palestine, genocide gets thrown out there a lot, and it's just how do you how do you get to the point where you can call it that? I mean, some people feel like it's very obvious that what's going on over there is genocide, So, um, and yeah, I don't know. I haven't really um, I haven't really got into it, I guess, enough to really say what I'm going to call it or not. So, but again, I felt it was interesting that, again, it's a word that's been tossed around a lot in our own news cycle lately. And here we are talking about it in this episode. And so, us having our own conversation, I guess, in the framework of this episode and what qualifies as genocide is interesting. So, this may help me in forming my own opinion there. So, who knows? So now, of course, before we end our show, we have to turn our attention to Garrick, Kira, and Damar, and
Right.
we see Damar go from rebel leader to rebel loser, now to legend.
Yeah.
And what do you think of Damar's transformation as we've seen it over these last few episodes?
Well, it really is crazy. I mean, I think we talked last not last episode, at least 2 episodes ago, about Damar and his growth from a character who was literally just another Cardassian character for Gul Dukat to interact with, to the one who killed Gul Dukat's daughter. What was her name again? Lita.
Zial.
Zial. That's it. Sorry,
Lita
Zita
is
is.
Rom's wife.
That's right. Yeah. 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 Zial. He killed Zial, and then he becomes, Wayun's, kind of not lapdog, but like whipping boy for a time, and now he's a rebel leader. They made his character really interesting, and like he's actually become a kind of protagonist now. He was a secondary antagonist for a long time, both as Gul Dukat's guy and then as Wayun's guy. And now he's straight up like, okay, like he's going to become the face of the
You know,
rebellion.
he's had a really interesting arc, and it's great in the way that it's understated. Like
Yeah,
you said, he started off as a no lines background Cardassian character. He quickly became Ducat's number two,
hmm
and even then he always represented this very almost naive kind of Cardassian. He believed in the strength of Cardassia. He believed in the strength of Cardassians just for Cardassian's sake. He idolized Ducat and could see no wrong in what Ducat was doing until finally it was like Ducat strayed too much into the influence of others and his love of women and power and adulation taking him out of the honor that Damar felt being a Cardassian in the military.
right.
And so then when Ducat is deposed and captured and Damar is elevated, he kind of to me it seems like he saw this as a chance for him to kind of restore some of that honor. But now he's dealing with a different Wayoon, literally a different Wayoon,
hmm
who is more ruthless and does not have the patience at all to be um, one that placates the Cardassians the way they did with Ducat.
hmm
He wants Damar to shut up and do as he's told because he's a soldier in the Dominion now. The Cardassian army doesn't exist. You are yet another cog in the Dominion wheel. Take your place and be quiet.
Right.
And this bothers DeMar greatly because he has always been one that's all about the glory of the Cardassian people. And he's watching as his people are constantly subjugated, constantly, forced to do, terrible things,
Hmm.
and they receive none of the benefits, none of the
Yeah.
accolades, nothing from it. They're dying. There's the episode where they said like there was the Fifth Order, I think, and 500,000 soldiers died, and Wayne couldn't even be bothered
Yeah.
really, and it upset him greatly. And so now we've got this guy who is like, I get it. Like we did this to the Bajoran people, and now that it's happening here, kind of like we've seen with other people in the past, no one really seems to understand until it happens to them. Well, now it's happening to him,
Right.
and it's happening to his people, and he's watching them die by the thousands, hundreds of thousands in real time, and he just can't stand on the sidelines anymore. He's got to say something. He's got to do something. And
Right.
so now he is the legend leading the charge. I think it's one of the more fascinating role developments. It's not even a role reversal. Like we get to watch him fully come through it, you know,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
go from again that very naive I'm just going to follow orders type military character to someone who is a wise strategist who sees the value in lives and the value of your friends and your allies and the importance of those kinds of relationships and who you make deals with. And he's just really come a long way. And really, he's kind of become the embodiment of everything that Ducat never was, but always wanted to be. And I think that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. Yeah. Ducat's whole problem was he wanted the Bajorans to worship him, and he didn't care if the Cardassians liked him, which is interesting. If you think about it,
Because
he never.
he felt like he had that already. He
Yeah.
felt like he had the Cardassian part already sewn up. He didn't need to concentrate there. But
Yeah.
he really wanted the Bajoran people to love him as much
Yeah.
as he thought the Cardassians did.
Right. Well, the real interesting thing though is like literally Ducat has surgically changed himself to look like a Bajoran. He sacrificed his Cardassianness, the planet, his people, his very Cardassian identity in order to somehow gain the Bajorans for himself. Ducat Damar has done the opposite. He sacrificed personally, and he's now on the precipice of becoming the hero that like Ducat wants the Bajorans to treat him as, like the
Yes, the
emissary.
legend, the idol.
Yeah,
Um, they're chanting his name. All of these things that they're doing for Damar that no one, Cardassian or otherwise, has ever done for Ducat.
but the reason I bring that up is like, let's say that Ducat went back and he took Damar's place. Would he be satisfied with the
No,
Cardassians worshiping him like this?
not at all.
It's
Like,
he is a predator in the almost awful sense. He wants his rape victims to love him. He doesn't
yeah,
want a wife and children. He wants a battered and abused slave to say, "Thank you, sir. I want some more." That's how
yeah.
messed up Ducat
He
is.
not even thank you, sir. I want some more, but to profess her love for him.
Yes,
She wants him to.
you.
He
I
wants
needed
her to
this.
really, yes, really
Yeah.
love him.
Why do you make me hit you?
You've brutalized me, my people, our planet, our resources, and I love you for it. That's what he's
Yes.
looking for. He
Right.
wants those words.
Right. That's how
And
perverse Ducat is. That's just crazy to think about. And yeah, Vincent's right.
it's a,
Damar's gonna get a statue. Ducat
oh
never
my
will get
god.
his, but
You know what? That's hilarious. I don't know if it's ever been done, but if I had a 3D printer, I would want to go to a convention where Mark Alemo and Casey Biggs
ah,
were there,
yeah.
and I would give Damar a statue in front of him and walk off. It'd be the funniest thing ever. And like, especially once you like, because it's been so long,
Yeah.
like to stand there and watch them slowly get what just happened.
Yeah,
Oh my God, the slow burn of it. I could die a happy man on thought alone watching
Yeah.
that moment. That would be hilarious.
Yeah.
But yeah, Demar, like not Demar, but Ducat, like you said, he he really was totally taken in by the Bajorans, and it makes you even want to kind of study the Bajorans a little bit. Like, what is it about them that so entranced this guy? Because, as by his own admission, they were a simple, backward farming people when the Cardassians discovered them.
Yeah.
They were religious. They were behind in every way, as he says in that episode when he's with Cisco on that planet. He says they were behind culturally, um, uh,
Technologically,
technologically,
yeah.
like everything. He lists it
Which is
all out.
also not
There's
entirely true because
nothing
we know that they have been starfaring peoples.
right.
Yeah.
But he just says that's what he says. To him, in his opinion, they were behind by at least 100 years in every way. They were the Cardassians were the obvious superior race, and yet they he could not understand why they would not just lay down and let them come through and take what they want from them
Right.
and worship them and idolize them for the god beings that they should have been viewed as. And it's such an interesting way to view your invasion of their home.
Right.
You think just because you have some sort of advancement, some sort of sophistication over them, they should be grateful that you're there. And
Right.
he hated the fact that they didn't. And now here we are, we see him going so deep into this. Like you said, he no longer appears Cardassian. He's given up his Cardassian ways. He's taken multiple Cardassian levers. He's even indoctrinated himself to the Cardassian faith, albeit to their demons, their
The
devils,
Bajoran
the
faith. Yeah. Yeah.
Pah-wraiths.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's still very much a Bajoran religion, and
Yeah.
even both the Pah-wraiths and the prophets say they are of Bajor. They
Yeah.
don't care about Cardassia. They don't care about Earth or the Klingon homeworld or any of that stuff. They say we are of Bajor, and
Right.
he could not accept that, and he
Yeah.
had to get himself into it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a
What a
he's
what a
he's a
psychology. I mean,
he's a great villain, huh?
yeah,
He's not
he really
he's
is. I mean, it's one of those things like I know we've talked about this before. To me, what makes a great villain great is when it's one of two things. Either their initial argument makes a lot of sense, so it almost sways you to their side. Because
right.
that to me makes them dangerous because you can almost believe them and you
Right.
can almost see why they're doing what they're doing.
Right.
That's dangerous. But the other type are the ones that are so full of their own hatred. They're so convinced of their own, like Vincent says here, their own might is right. That kind of overwhelming drive to being superior to anyone else. That is scary dangerous because there's nothing that can stop that person because there's nothing that they won't do
Hmm.
to secure that superiority. And
Hmm.
that's what we're seeing in Ducat here. He is absolutely fearless. He will do anything. He will say anything, as we see here with him and Kai Wynn.
Yeah.
He will say anything. He will bring anything it takes to get that power that he feels,
Right.
not only that he feels like should already like to be bestowed on him, but should already be his by
Right.
just because he's better.
Yeah.
He's better.
Yeah. It's great that we're talking about his character, and it's been 3 episodes since he's shown up. Like, I can't wait for his conclusion. Like, he's been walking around blind and homeless for 3 episodes now. I can't wait to find out how Kai Wynn has finally figured out how to do things, and she goes and finds him, or he comes back having his sight back, or
His sight is
convinced,
restored.
or his sight is still gone, but he's still like somehow made himself successful in some weird, perverse, charismatic way, like he did with the Paw Wraith cult in that episode earlier this season. Like, that's what's so great about him is like, as you said, it's like, didn't you say like Marco Limo even convinced himself of his own character's like righteousness on some
Oh
level?
yeah, they talked about it a lot in that documentary "What You Leave Behind," which we will watch. there are a couple of times where he talks about being Ducat and Ducat's interaction with Kira and so forth. And he was like, he thought of himself as the compelling main character. He convinced himself that he was the compelling main character here, and he was like,
Right.
it was kind of annoying to other people. I was like, I bet it was.
Right.
I bet it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and then yeah, Kira talks about how she like because he says Alimo says that he got to the point where even he was convincing himself that he was also in love with Nana. He wanted her. And then when she talks about it, she was like, "Yeah, it was creepy." So,
Yeah.
um,
Can't wait to
yeah.
watch that. That'd be great. Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, it's stuff like that though, where the actors really, really get into it. I can't think of many shows that really do that anymore. Mainly because we don't have many shows that go as long anymore. You know, with these 8 to 10 episode seasons,
Mhm.
you barely have time to get comfortable with the character before the season's over or they die or some combination thereof. So it is an interesting way to play this all out. But I'm with you. I can't wait to watch, the final episode. I have not watched. I actually did the math here in anticipation of this episode going into the final. I have not watched the final episode of Deep Space Nine in 15 years.
Really? Wow.
15 long,
And
long.
I have to say, I hope I'm not jinxing myself. I have no idea what happens. I haven't spoiled anything for
I was gonna
myself.
say,
Nothing
don't
accidentally.
go on Wikipedia, don't
Yeah.
go on
Yep.
anything,
Yep.
don't even like Google a
Woo.
character's name because they
Yeah.
sometimes give you synopsis. Just don't touch it. You got a week,
Yes.
hold out.
Right.
You're good.
Exactly. Um, but before we finish all that up, we gotta quickly talk about Quark and his little storyline.
We will wrap
Um,
it up on Quark. Fine. Yes.
yeah.
Not being the Nagus. Um, as
Which
as go ahead. You go ahead.
I thought Brunt was gonna show up, and like the twist was gonna be that like Brunt somehow is gonna twist everything in his favor and make himself Grand Nagus. And then when it was Rom, I was like, okay.
So
I
so I
know
really
you kind of hate Rom, so
I it's not that I hate Rom.
sure.
It's more it's kind of the same thing I feel for Worf in this regard, but it's with Quark, and it's Quark goes through a lot of growth himself.
Which
And
can I just say,
yeah.
Armin Shimmerman completely agrees with that statement. In the Wikipedia article here at the very bottom of it, it talks about Armin Shimmerman saying, "I always thought my character had not developed, and then I realized in this episode how much he had really changed, and I realized that the actor hadn't realized what the writers had been doing the whole time." Like, sorry, like you
Oh,
said that,
okay.
and I was like, Armin Shimmerman agrees 100% with that statement. Go ahead, go ahead, go
Okay,
ahead.
I didn't know that. But yeah, I would have liked to see them recognize that Quark really has changed. And it's so cool because even in the episode, like Quark does things and he says stuff, and you can see how much the change has been ingrained in him that he didn't even notice it. Like when Rom is trying to get him to sell the bar, and he says, "I'll give you 5,000 strips of latinum," and he says, "That's a fair price."
Yeah,
Like he just says it absentmindedly. He's not even thinking about it. And
right,
then he signs up on it and he goes, "I didn't even haggle with you. I didn't try to negotiate the price at all. I just accepted it. I have
right.
changed." Like, yes, you have changed and you've changed for the better. Yeah, you're still, a greedy Ferengi, whatever, but you now are a greedy Ferengi with a soul.
Yeah,
And you understand limits and towing a line and when you gotta finesse things a little bit more. And I think he shows the better development as the next evolution of Ferengi than
yeah,
Rom does.
yeah. I agree.
What they were trying to say, I feel like anyway, with installing Rom as Nagus was that, he's so benevolent and giving and with his wife and his kid and the Federation and the way that he looks at his mother and all this stuff, all the social reforms that they put in place would stay in place. And that's true, they would, but would they be successful? Would
Right.
the Ferengi people ultimately keep that going for a long time?
Right.
Probably not, because he's a little too extreme. So maybe having someone that would be more moderate in the middle
Yes.
there would make more sense, and that's Quark. Quark
Yeah.
makes perfect sense in that role, and also considering what we've seen of him over this last 7 years and his development, I was wanting someone to come along and acknowledge the fact that he has changed,
Right.
and being the Grand Nagus makes sense.
Yes. He's been kind of groomed for it this whole time,
Yeah,
ever
and
since
he's
Grand Nagus
yeah,
came along. He's This is the first time he even was the Grand Nagus. I mean, wasn't it season 2 that the Grand Nagus decided to suddenly like retire and he
right,
was the Grand
and he
Nagus for
made
a day?
yeah, he made, Quark the Grand Nagus 10. So
Yeah.
he's actually done the role
Yeah.
before.
So I totally agree. I'll put it this way: when they were when uh what's the other Commissioner Brunt, or
Liquidator Brunt
that's
from
the
the
word, Liquidator.
FCA.
When Liquidator Brunt shows up and he starts describing all the changes, he doesn't describe them like when he's describing them to Quark. He's describing them with a kind of shrug, like this is just how things are now.
Yeah, like he's already
I
accepted it.
I figured Brunt would be more like subversive and be more like, can you imagine how terrible all this is? And then like the whole idea being is that he's setting Quark up for failure. Turns out all these reformations are popular and Brunt knows it. And so
Yeah.
Brunt is setting Quark up to make a fool of himself, and then Brunt gets the job in the end. I thought that's what that was going to go. If Quark had become the Grand Nagus and he sees all the reforms and he sees that they're actually working, oh, it turns out that monopolies create competition and competition drives down prices, but it also drives up, business, all that jazz, all that jazz. If they had gone
Mhm.
that route, that would have been interesting. But I feel like the choice that they made is that because Armin Shimmerman as Quark is part of the main cast of Deep Space Nine, they can't let the character like Quark is forever the bartender. He's forever the owner of the bar on Deep Space Nine. He'll never truly be allowed to move beyond that. His character is forever tied to the bar. And I feel like that was ultimately the decision that was made, was like we can't let the character move on. The only other
So
character who's free then is Rom, so he gets it by default.
so I can certainly see that particular argument, but I mean there's nothing to say that Quark as the new Grand Nagus couldn't shift the seat of power from Ferenginar to the station.
Sure, that could have
Making
been a solution.
making an argument that being on the station near the wormhole with all the stuff going on with all these multiple races and everything else puts him at the center of a galactic commerce ring,
Right.
that they couldn't do from rainy, dreary Ferenginar. You
Yeah,
know,
I mean, it certainly is curious that the Grand Nagus Zek even wants to do it there on the station anyway. And it turns out to be a low key transition anyway. He just hands the staff off to
yeah, just
Rob
as
with
here, you're
barely
it.
a
Bye.
sentence. Yeah,
Right.
I was very surprised by all that. Like, only Liquidator Brunt decided to show up and be a sycophant from the get go. There are
Yeah.
no other
No other
sycophants around.
Ferengi. Right. No other
Even the
Ferengi wanted to come and
even the other bartenders, like they were actually like showing off the other Ferengi in the bar this episode. None of them were really making an effort. Oh,
yeah.
and I love how one of the things that Quark complains about is the absolutely clearly stated, uh, sexual harassment. That why can't bosses straight up sleep with their employees? Like that's one of the things he's sad has changed. Like there wasn't an insinuation that that was what was going on. He straight up says
He said it's in their contract.
it.
He's like, "What do you mean? I got to take this out?" Yeah.
Yeah,
And then, as Vincent points out to us, he does quote Captain Picard from First Contact when he gets fed up and he's storming through the bar of all
yeah,
the things he's not going to take, and he does the line must be drawn here, this far, no further.
yeah.
And I was watching, I was like, well, you're no Patrick Stewart, but that wasn't bad. That wasn't bad.
Yeah, yeah. Give
I have
Quark.
to imagine that when he did that scene, people were just cackling in the corners,
Yeah,
in the shadows, just
right.
being like, how did you guys manage to work that in? And with Quark of all people.
Yeah,
But also, Armin Shimmerman is also a trained Shakespearean actor, so
Yeah.
it works.
Yeah. Yeah, the funny thing about all that again is that Rom is the one who ends up as the Grand Nagus. He's not qualified at all. He as the whole bargaining over the bar went, like he was nervous the whole time. Like he's gonna stand up to the rest of Ferenginar on this subject as Grand Nagus. I mean, at least Quark had some stones about him.
Yeah,
So yeah, that was a silly choice. It was more a choice of like, hey, we want to have a cute ending for these characters because now we're at the end, as opposed to
we
a
want endings that make
realistic
sense, right?
explanation. Yeah,
We
like
want
even
everything. We want cute. We want pretty bows on
yeah,
everything, not realistic, not
yeah.
you know,
Quark can't leave the bar, and he has his little temper tantrum, but he
yeah,
also like congratulates his brother because I love you, brother. Like they wanted everything, and so they chose to like just have all of their cake and eat it too
mhm.
with this little plot line. So all right, fine.
Now,
I
as a
mean,
mild spoiler treat, I will
don't
say that
you dare. I thought I just said I have no spoilers going into the finale, and here you're about to ruin
it's
that.
not for that. Calm down.
Okay, all right,
Allow me to
fine.
tell my spoiler.
Okay, well, just
The
saying.
fate of the so Rom, as we see here, is installed as the Grand Nagus. He does make another appearance in Star Trek in animated form on Lower Decks, where they end up going to the station, and the Grand Nagus comes with his wife Lita, and basically the way that that's played up is just like you would expect. Rom is an idiot, and
Leah runs
Lita
everything.
is really kind of running the show.
Yeah, yeah, of course. That's how
So
it happens.
yeah,
Of
but they
course.
kind of play it off as he's an idiot when he wants to be, and then they kind of have this like sly plan to where like he intentionally plays dumb while secretly talking with Lita to make sure that he gets whatever it is that he wants, and all this kind of stuff, and that you can't really confront Rom directly because he plays an idiot so well that you don't realize what's going on until it's too late. So yeah, it's here or there as to whether or not that's cool with anybody or not, but that's what happens. So there you go.
Gotcha. Okay.
Well, I think we have covered pretty much everything there is to cover about this particular episode.
Yeah.
Um, we only have one left, guys. One final episode. Well,
Yeah.
one final episode of Deep Space Nine. But our show is going to continue. We've got several things we're going to cover before we either finally decide
We
to
have a
pack
nice
it
little
in
list of
or
things
yeah,
we'll do. Yeah.
yeah. So don't worry, we've come up with stuff for you. So stay tuned.
Yeah.
Keep tuning in. All that good stuff. Now, I will say that we do have Star Trek Day coming up. Um, I think we are going to do something for Star Trek Day. We might, because it won't be quite time for an episode of our show, I don't think. No, it'll be right after, because Star Trek Day is Saturday the 6th. So our show will be back on Sunday the 7th.
To
So
finish
we'll
this
talk
whole
about
thing up. Yeah.
to finish this up. So
Yeah.
we'll come back. We'll talk about what we'll do and everything else. We might have a special Saturday episode for Star Trek Day. Who knows? We'll get there. But until then, guys, I think that's really going to do it for us. Go check out the Star Trek Voyager game because I'm interested in it, and I would like to see some other people talk about it a little bit, see what you think, at least of the graphics so far, and we can go from there. All right. But again, until next week, guys, take care of yourselves.
Thanks, guys.